What's going on, guys? Right Teacher Nows, and I'm here with a very different type of video, something that I wanted to talk about. For those who are obviously not in America, recently in Columbus, Ohio, over in America, there was a shooting of a female known as Takiya Young. She was suspected of shoplifting, and she attempted to run over a police officer and was shot by a fatal wound, and then, of course, died at the scene. That is the issue at hand here. Now, I'm a former security officer. I actually have worked in all forms of security, from retail security, much like this, to concerts, nightclubs, festivals, even political conferences, and various things like that. So I wanted to talk about it from the security aspect point of view, and we'll talk about how the various things. We are going to watch the actual incident that led to her final moments. This is a video from the Associated Press. This is a body cam footage of the actual incident itself. This is the final moment of it. This is what we initially actually saw, and then we'll actually watch the CCTV footage of what happened in the build-up to this moving forward. But we will watch this first and foremost. Obviously, as a warning, this does contain graphic images. I am gonna pause it and stop it as the actual shooting happens, so you won't actually see it, but just as a heads up. So let's watch this. So first thing we can see, obviously, is there is an officer at the side of the vehicle, and there is an officer in front of the vehicle. This vehicle is actually in a parking lot, in a car park, for those who are British like myself. So with the officer stood in this position, the suspect cannot actually leave the scene without running over the officer. That's important to know.
Get out of the car. Then get out. No.
So you can hear that the officer is telling the Takiya Young to get out the car. Now, in Ohio, I had to look this up because I wasn't actually sure about this. You are required by law. It is an offense to not comply with a police officer's request if a police officer is audibly or visibly telling you to do something. You are legally required to actually do it. So he's been told to get out the car repeatedly, and she is refusing.
Get out. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
So now, this officer here has pulled out his weapon, which, politically speaking, we can say all sorts about this, but this is the moment that it happens. So you can see that she is driven, put her foot on the gas, run the police officer over, and, of course, the officer has then fired a shot that has killed her. I'm going to pause it there. I'm not going to watch it any further. So, obviously, this cried a massive media outcry. This is a white police officer shooting a black female. Now, and suddenly now this is a Black Lives Matter issue. But Takiya Young is not as innocent as she might seem in all of this, because actually we have got the CCTV footage of what actually happened. Shout outs to WPNS 10 TV for actually posting this. This is released over on their channel. But before we're going to watch the shoplifting and before we actually see what happens here, there's an important term in security that every officer knows. And it is an acronym that is called ASCONE. ASCONE is a very important model. This actually is required. So in the UK, this is actually used in court, that if you don't have all 6 of these steps confirmed, then you cannot actually convict somebody of the actual shoplift. But let's go through this for you. So, A is standing for approach. This is when the suspect is approaching the item of value or the item they intend to steal. In this case, we're in a liquor store, so it is obviously going to be alcohol. S is for selection. So you have to physically see the suspect pick up the item. This is them picking the item that they intend to steal, and excuse me, physically holding it in their hand. C is concealment. Sometimes in America it's called carry, but it is concealment primarily. Obviously, this can be anything from putting it in your bag to putting it in your jacket. I've seen some try to hide it in their pants before. Yes, that has been a thing that I have had to deal with. Somebody stuffed a ready meal down their pants before and tried to get away with it. Yeah, that's a thing that I've had to deal with in the past. Always observation. Now, an important thing to note with observation is that this has to be continuous, which means that if at any point you lose sight of the suspect, you now cannot prove that they haven't actually dumped it back on a shelf somewhere. So this is actually the most common one, where any security officer would fail to secure a conviction if the observation is not continuous. We will talk about that when we go further through the video. And it's non-payment. So if they obviously don't go to the checkout, if they don't actually pay for the items, they just go straight up and avoid it. And E is exit. Now, in some cases, I think in America, actually, the shoplifters already happened before this. In the UK, they actually have to have physically left the store for it to account as a theft. But that is what the ASCONE model stands for. This is what we are going to be looking at. This is the lens that we will be going through this as we go ahead and watch the video. There is no audio on this. It's because it's a CCTV camera, so it doesn't record audio or anything of such nature. But let's watch the video at hand, and we will talk about all of the security things that happen. But before we do actually watch it, though, just as a heads up, this is security cameras that the cashier behind the counter is supposed to be monitoring. I'm not usually a fan of this. In the UK, actually, this is very heavily frowned upon to literally only have a store representative and security cameras. It is very common in the UK to have a physical officer like myself who would be in the store monitoring at all times, especially with a store layout like this one. This would very much need an officer present because there will be some blind spots that are very, very difficult to see, especially if the cashier is working with the customers. So, let's go through this. So here is Takiya Young. She's already got a bottle, and you can see she puts in the basket. Now, the first thing that she does, which is very noticeable, is she is walking down the aisle that is the furthest away from the cashier. Could be seen as normal given the way the store is laid out. But this is actually very common practice among those that are shoplifters, is they will try to avoid whichever is closest to anyone where she might get caught. So, you see she walks straight down here, completely ignores this aisle, because the value items that she's looking for is in the middle of the store here. So this is where we immediately start seeing certain things. Now, in the US, I don't know if this is different, but in the UK, we have specific rules on security tagging. So items that are specifically required to be tagged as security things, because they will get procced by a gate, and the AS gates, we'll actually see later in this video, one of those, so I'll show you what I mean by that. But we can already see that she's approaching all of these items in this particular area. But watch what actually happens. So you can see that she's approached the area, but now you can see she's looking around. And what she's doing is she's trying to look to see if anyone is paying attention to her. Obviously, we've got the cashier here. This customer is obviously looking for something specific. And now what you can see here is that now that she's purposely looking around. Okay, now, no normal shopper would ever do this, so this is already suspicious to me. If I was operating a CCTV camera, I'd already be having full eyes on her, which we can see what happens as we move forward. So you can see that she sees that no one's watching her right now, so now she is going to pull out another bag. Again, very common practice among shoplifters is that they will have multiple bags within their purse, but it will be pretty concealed, so it would just look relatively normal. Obviously, it would look normal for a female to carry a clutch bag like that. That's not uncommon. That happens all the time. But she's pulled out a second bag. So watch what she does now. So now you can see here that she has now approached some items. I'm actually going to move myself real quick. Let me move myself over here so you can see what's going on. Right, she has now approached the items. You can now see that she is actually picking said items up. She has selected the items that she wants, and now she's concealing them in these bags. So we have already got not half of the ASCONE model already done. We can quite clearly see that she is concealing those bottles. That is 4, at least, that she's now put in. I believe that is now 4. And now she has now picked up a 5th one. And that's now in the bag. And you can see she's looking around to see if she can get any more. She did have a brief look over, which may have suggested this person here might have actually noticed, or she thought this person might have noticed something. She may have seen it out of the corner of her eye, so she purposely went out of her way to stop putting more bottles in the bag. But we know there's 5 bottles in there already. We've already seen that. So what she now does is she then goes ahead and picks up another bottle, and she puts that in the basket to look like it's perfectly normal. To look like, obviously, nothing is being done. So to anyone around, there wouldn't be any suspicion, because obviously that suspicion would be away because there's a bottle in the basket. So watch what she now does. Now this gets important, because this is very frequently happening. So now she's put another bottle in. That's fine. Looks relatively normal. Now here's where it gets more difficult. So this person here is an accomplice. This is somebody who is part of the team that is also trying to shoplift as well. And there is also one other person that comes in as well, this woman here. Now, she also follows the same path that Takiya Young does, but then watch what happens here. So the 2 women have come in, they've interacted with Takiya. So now she's going back around the corner there, swapping places, and now she's going to put the bottles that were in the basket, they are now in her bag, so now that's 8 bottles that have been concealed. So we know this now as we continue to move forward. So again, she tries to pass this off as completely normal. There's still another bottle in the basket, which she actually puts back at this point, which is kind of unusual. That's something that doesn't happen too often. But we have seen her put it back, and now she is looking around. Obviously sees this go past, and now she's kind of looking as if she's distancing, waiting for the line to go ahead, waiting for this person to leave. Obviously this person gets served, and now she's pretending to wait in line. But notice immediately what she's already doing. You can actually see that she is purposely watching these 2. And that's because these 3 are all together. These 2 are now actually purposely taking more bottles. We don't actually see if they've actually taken any specifically. We do see it slightly later on. From what I can tell, you can see her, she's looking over. Someone else lines up behind her. But you can clearly see here, there's at least 1. You can see 2 there that have been taken. Although she puts 1 back. So it looks like potentially only 1 that we've seen there. But now you see that she's going to leave, even with the basket, which is interesting. And now you can see that they've left. There's at least 10 bottles of alcohol that's been stolen between the 3 of them. There's potentially more. We don't know what the other 2 females are carrying. But now, of course, they go ahead and leave. So we've now already seen the non-payment aspect of our ASCONE model already done. And now we are going to go see... This is another area of non-payment, of course. They are just gone at this point. And this is obviously a slow-mo of a different angle. And what they're now going to do is they're going to walk straight through the EAS gates, these gates right here. Now, this is what I was saying earlier, that one of the things that we would do as a security officer, part of our role is to make sure that every item that should be tagged is tagged. Now, it depends what these bottles were. If these were expensive alcohol, in the UK, they would always be tagged. But in the US, it might be slightly different. I don't know how their tagging actually works. If there's an American security officer, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. But what would normally happen in the UK is these would sound the alarm and these would light up. You can see that they don't do that as these guys walk through here. So these guys basically walk straight out. So at this point, 10 bottles of alcohol has been stolen. At least. There's potentially more. But we know that Takiya Young has taken at least 8 of those by herself. So we know what's going on here. We can follow all of the ASCONE payment, all of the ASCONE model. We are absolutely 100% certain that Takiya Young shoplifted from the store. So we know that all went down, and you can see from this that they walk straight out, no payment whatsoever. They didn't even actually go to a checkout to even pay for anything. So what happens when they leave? Well, this is going to be the extension to what goes on. You can actually see that the group actually end up going their separate ways. So here you can see Takiya Young. This is the individual that's stolen the alcohol. She's heading over to her car, which is a black sedan. This vehicle right here. Now somebody actually said this vehicle was unregistered. I have no idea. And now you can see this is, I believe, an employee. They flagged down the 2 police officers. So one officer here has approached to tell her to get out of the car because she's obviously stolen something. And then the other officer is going to come round to cover and assist, which is absolutely correct. And obviously, again, to block off the pathway, which is what we expect to see. And then, of course, we do see her drive through the officer. And this actually confirms why the officer shot, by the way. Now, there's certain grounds for deadly force that can be used as we go through it. But yeah, in this instance, we can clearly see that she's driven into the officer. The officer's ended up on the hood of the car, which is extremely dangerous. And that is why the shot got fired. Now, I'm not going to say which side I stand on in terms of whether it's okay or not. I'm personally anti-guns. But as you can quite clearly see, the officer's on the hood of the car at this point in time. So he's fired a single shot at this point to try to subdue. Obviously, the intent is not to kill her. Unfortunately, it sucks that she died at the scene. But this video really does prove that she was a shoplifter, that she stole from the store. At the end of the day, she was apprehended, or attempted to be apprehended, but she failed to comply with police. She ran over the police officer, which is a crime in its own right, and obviously she got shot in the process. So yeah, that is what happened. So from a security officer point of view, this is a shoplift. This would be an easy conviction. Obviously, she failed to get out of the car and failed to comply with police, which she would be required to do. Instead, she decided the option was to run over the police officer. So yeah, that is what happened. Let me know what you guys think of all this down below in the comments, especially if you're on the American side. I'd love to hear from you. But yep, that's going to be it from me. So thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.